I have to say right away, The Last House does not look like the kind of Netflix thriller you casually put on in the background while checking your phone. This looks like the kind of movie where the silence inside the house becomes louder than the danger outside it. Netflix has played with science fiction many times before, from Stranger Things to The Adam Project, What Happened to Monday, and I.O., but this new film seems to be reaching for something sharper. It is not just asking what happens when a family is trapped. It is asking what happens when the world stops making sense, the doors stop opening, and the people you love become the only defense you have left. The new trailer gives us our first real look at that nightmare, and the setup is brutally simple. Greta stars as Anne, while Oscar nominee Wagner Moura plays Jason. Together, they lead a story about a family that suddenly finds itself unable to leave its own home. No clean explanation, no easy escape, no safe place beyond the walls. Something mysterious is keeping them inside, and as the pressure rises, survival becomes less about fighting one monster and more about facing every crack inside the family itself. That is what immediately makes this trailer interesting to me. A lot of modern thrillers try to go bigger and louder, but The Last House appears to understand that fear can be more powerful when it is boxed in. A family trapped in one place, food slowly running out, trust being tested every hour, and no one knowing what is actually waiting for them next. That is not just a horror premise. That is a pressure cooker. And when a movie traps its characters inside a space where every conversation can become a threat, that is when the real story begins. Director Leterrier, known for Lupin, described the movie in a way that tells us exactly where the tension is coming from. Food is running low, the family has to rely on each other, and they are forced to figure out what has trapped them and how they are supposed to survive it. That may sound straightforward, but that is where the best survival stories usually live. The external danger gets them through the door, but the internal fear is what keeps the audience watching. If this trailer is being honest about the tone, The Last House is not going to let this family hide from either one. Greta's presence is one of the biggest reasons this movie feels worth watching. Audiences may know her from Russian Doll, but what makes her exciting here is the emotional intelligence she brings to roles that could easily become one note. In a trapped family thriller, and cannot just be scared. She has to carry panic, protection, exhaustion, anger, and hope, sometimes in the same scene. Lee said she was drawn to survival stories told from a different point of view, and that detail matters. This does not sound like a movie that only wants to show a family running from danger. It sounds like a movie that wants to ask what survival does to the way people see themselves. And then there is Wagner Moura as Jason. Moura has always been great at playing men who seem composed until pressure starts pulling something darker to the surface. His own comment about the film points directly to the emotional core of the story. Everyone can recognize themselves somewhere in this family. Everyone is a parent, a child, a son, or a daughter. Everyone understands the messy overlap between love, protection, humor, conflict, and instinct. That is a smart angle because it pushes The Last House beyond simple genre mechanics. The movie is not just selling a mystery, it is selling recognition. It wants us to look at this family and feel, even for a second, that we might not behave as calmly as we like to imagine. That is where the horror element becomes more personal. When a family is trapped, the question is not only how did they get out. The better question is who do they become while they are stuck inside? Do they protect each other? Do they turn on each other? Does fear make them honest, or does it make them cruel? Those are the questions that can make a confined thriller hit harder than a giant disaster movie. The threat outside the door may be mysterious, but the real danger might be what isolation reveals. The cast also includes Riley Chung and Noah Alexander Sosnovsky as the children, while Emma Ho and Gabriel Barbosa play older versions of Ruth and Graham later in the film. That is a major clue about the structure. If we are seeing both younger and older versions of these characters, then The Last House may not be a simple single-night survival story. It may be playing with time, memory, trauma, or the long-term consequences of what happens inside that house. A movie like this can end when the family escapes, but the emotional damage does not always end there. Maybe the real story is not just about surviving the house. Maybe it is about what the house leaves behind. Leterrier also revealed a fascinating creative influence. He said he grew up on Steven Spielberg movies, especially the Amblin-style films where homes felt real, lived in, and grounded. That inspiration matters because it suggests The Last House is not aiming for a cold, glossy, empty kind of science fiction. It wants texture. It wants practical spaces. It wants the home to feel like a place where a real family has built a life before the nightmare begins. The first half of the movie was reportedly shot entirely on 35mm film and uses practical effects, which is exactly the kind of choice that can give a thriller real physical weight. What I like most about this trailer is that it does not appear to over-explain the central mystery. We know the family is trapped. We know supplies are disappearing. We know trust is going to fracture, but we do not know what is holding them there. Is it something technological? Something environmental? Something psychological? Something completely outside the normal rules of the world? That uncertainty is the hook. And honestly, if the movie plays that mystery carefully, The Last House could become the kind of Netflix release people start recommending with the words, "Do not read anything, just watch it." And that is where The Last House could separate itself from a lot of other streaming thrillers. The best version of this movie is not just about the mystery. It is about the emotional cost of staying alive. It is about parents trying to protect children while slowly losing control. It is about people who love each other discovering that love does not magically solve fear. It is about the animal instinct Moura mentioned, the instinct to protect, to fight, to hold on, and sometimes to make terrible choices because there are no good ones left, of course. The biggest question is whether the film can deliver a payoff worthy of its premise. Contained thrillers live or die by escalation. You cannot keep showing the same locked doors and the same arguments for 2 hours. The tension has to evolve. The mystery has to deepen. The family dynamics have to change. And by the end, the reveal has to feel earned, not random. If The Last House can pull that off, Netflix may have a late summer genre title that cuts deeper than expected. The Last House arrives on Netflix on August 7th, and I will be watching closely because this could be more than another trapped family thriller.